Fraser, Needham, thanks so much for speaking with us. First off, can you tell our viewers some of the things that were on the agenda today for the first day of Parliament?
Okay, it started off this morning with Prime Minister Mark Carney in a local grocery store here in Ottawa to announce something called the Canada Groceries and Essentials Benefit. It just basically replaces the GST credit. And so the government's announcing quite a significant thing to help people with the rising cost of groceries. It's a 50% increase for the first year, and that could basically be as much as $1,890 this year, and then about $1,400 for the rest of the 5 years that it's been announced for. So certainly they're kind of bringing things back to cost of living sort of things on the first day of Parliament. That of course then dominated question period, with the Conservatives of course not wanting to go against this, but saying that they'd like to see much more to address affordability in the way of tax cuts, and that would include sort of getting rid of the the industrial carbon tax is something that they mentioned during question period, that they think the Liberals should go further in making life more affordable for Canadians.
Yeah, cost of living is definitely on the minds of all of us. Fraser, what are some of the Indigenous items that may be on the legislative agenda in this session as well?
Okay, well, I think there's two in particular. The first one would be the reintroduction of the First Nations Clean Water Act. Of course, this died on the order paper in the last Parliament before there was an election, so it's something they need to simply just reintroduce. A lot of people thought that would be done in the fall session. It wasn't. And so the Prime Minister committed to it at the APTN Assembly here recently in Ottawa in December that they would put that forward. There's a lot of worries though what it might be, because people think it would have already been reintroduced because they did have legislation. So people are worried that it will be lesser than what was originally proposed. And it wasn't something that was mentioned by the House Leader Stephen McKinnon as priorities in the session. So we'll see, where that kind of plays. And there's so much going on internationally. I wouldn't expect to see it right away in the agenda. The other thing is Bill S2, and that's something that further changes to the Indian Act registration that was introduced in the Senate actually in the last session. There's quite a big dust up over how it would play out. The Senate ended up in committee basically saying that they wanted to get rid of the second generation cutoff, which is something the government said was not what they wanted to do or go that far. Again, with that piece of legislation, I'm not really sure what will happen, because the government and the Minister Mandy Galmassy, who's the IC minister, was firmly against what the senators were trying to do, said that they would have to have more consultation in order to do that. So I could see if they do introduce it, the government killing it, or them just pushing it down the way and not kind of sitting on it and not introducing it at all.
And finally, Fraser, what are the chances of an election in 2026?
Well, I think they're reasonable. A few weeks ago, people were saying, well, that the government does want a majority. They've had 2 MPs from the Conservatives cross the floor, so that that would be one way to getting toward it, because they are close. But I think now with Carney's speech in Davos last week at the World Economic Forum, standing up directly to Trump, saying that middle countries have to work together against the hegemon, which clearly is the United States, that's getting a lot of good press. And there's some polls out that have put out his numbers at as much as, actually the party's numbers as much as 8% ahead of the Conservatives. So I think, his numbers have always been pretty good against Poilievre's. If the Conservative, if they stick with Poilievre in their convention going into the weekend, which it looks like they will do, I wouldn't be surprised if the Liberals sort of tried to bait the Conservatives into an election. They sort of did that on the budget last year, but the opposition parties backed down. But I don't think they could do that again. It would be an embarrassment. And of course, the NDP will have a new leader. So I wouldn't rule it out. It wouldn't be right away, but I think really the government would frame it as, they need a majority to do the things they need to do to stand up to Donald Trump, and that would be sort of a perfect way to sort of go into an election. I think it's probably something, depending on how things have gone in the last few weeks, something Canadians may accept. But I guess we'll have to stay posted.
We'll have to leave it there, Fraser. That's Fraser Needham reporting from Ottawa.